Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. And my name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things I love to draw, and like all humans I'm an artist, and it's my passion in my life. It's also my career, my vocation now, particularly for adult colouring books it seems. But I love stylised and whimsical drawings, and I draw inspiration from lots of different places. So I welcome you here this morning to come draw with me. And I think that's what we're going to do. So with no further ado, what I've got here is a piece of paper that is, I'll measure it because I've forgotten, it's nearly 13 centimetres by nearly 16 centimetres. And I don't know what that is in inches, but I will do the calculations or the measurements when I can either find a ruler or use the Google, because the Google's good for things like this. All I've done is I've drawn some lines in about, I think it's 2 centimetres in from the edge. Now they are just guides for me as the space I want to draw things, because I already know what I'm going to be drawing with you because I've already drawn it. It's very grey and damp and dull here today in the valleys of South Wales in the United Kingdom. And so today I, like most days through the winter, I use my daylight therapy lamp to give my happy chemicals a little boost. And so there's not a lot I can do while the lamp's on, so I was drawing. But we're going to draw a collection of seed pods here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about where I want the stems to go and the height of them. So I want one to go kind of like this. I think I'll have a third one that goes over here a bit. And that's not a third one, is it? That's only a second one. And then I think I'd like one that goes here and perhaps up to this area. I only want 3 because I want to leave some space here. And there's a reason I want to, I think. So I'm going to start with the longest one first, and I'm going to draw all the seed heads in before I put the stems in. Okay, so these seed heads are going to be the ones that are like pointy teardrops, and I'm using an 05 Copic Multiliner pen. You can see it there, and I've got a 0.25 and a 0.1 as well with me. Now I want to, at the top here, I'm going to put a curved line there just to give my seed pod a bit of a top, and I'm going to repeat that line just to separate the top here into little sections like that. And then at the top I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to pop a little teardrop shape on the top of it because I can. Okay, in the middle I'm going to start close to the middle, and I'm going to draw my central section like so, so it's that kind of leaf shape, and then I'm going to repeat this and split the side sections up into 3 pieces. Now I'm drawing quite big, but if you can't quite manage 3, just split it up into 2 with one line, or perhaps you'd like to split it up in a different way, and that's perfectly fine as well. And then I'm putting a smaller version of that leaf shape in the middle, so it looks a little bit like an opening. And to help with that idea, I'm going to do some line weighting here. So I'm going to go to my 0.25 because I can control the thickness of these lines a little bit more if I use a thinner pen to add some ink to them. So I'm going to thicken this one, but I'm also going to add some weight on this side, like so. And it just gives it that feeling of sticking up a little bit. I'm also going to add some weight to the left and the bottom of that little teardrop side, and I'm also going to do the same on this side where I'm going to add some weight to the bottom and just up the sides a little bit. And the other thing I want to do is I'm going to just round off the tops of these little sections, the top and the bottom, like so. So that's my basic kind of seed pod today. A couple of other things. I do want to add some weight to the left of these lines. And I may put some actually just a little bit on the right as well, just to help with that feeling of falling away. And then I want to add some leaves that come up the side. So hopefully, I haven't got my camera angle set up the best, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line like this. Then I'm going to go from this point back over here, like so. Then I'm going to go to the top of this and I'm going to draw the rest of the line around like that. And I'm going to do the same on this side. So I've got to remember how I did that one because I wouldn't normally draw it like this. So that kind of shape, almost like an upside down J. Back that way. So it's a lot like this shape really. But then I'm going to create the bottom of the leaf and have it just coming underneath there, as if it's appearing from the bottom of this seed pod. And then I'm just going to add my kind of supports for the bottom of it, because this is fanciful. It's not meant to be real, it's inspiration from life or from nature, but it's not exactly the same. Do you know, I'm not so sure about that line that goes off to the edge there. I'm really not. I'm not so sure about that. I think I might want to keep these. Let me have a look. So I've got this one comes here, and perhaps I have one that goes there. That's a bit better. So I'm going to add my second one here. It's the same kind of shape, and yes, I've spilled out of this square. There's a reason for that. Next step, I'm going to put that little curve upwards in there and split this. Actually splits into 4 sections because I add 3 lines. Then I'm going to do my central part, and I might as well pop this in while I'm at it. And I am going to, I think I will just manage to squeeze 2 in. Like so. Then I'm going to extend this line and add that teardrop shape like so. So let's go and do all the rounding or the increasing the thickness of the lines. Oops, so my hand went a bit weird there. We'll be fine though. Thing is, it looks like a huge mistaken error, but once everything's been added in and all the shadow and everything else has been added, you won't really notice it. So I've got that going on there. I do want to use my finer pen because I want to add some rounding top and bottom. Just these little spaces, just to make them that little bit on the rounder side. And then I just want to add some extra weight to the ends of these lines. Just make them that little bit thicker, more like a triangle shape than just an end. here especially, because I really do want that to look like everything's going underneath it. It's almost like these are a series of rings on the top, and if I'd thought about it, I could have drawn the top of it and then done these as little lumpy bumpy things, like my sort of like the version like down here, really. My base for my stem, like so. Okay, so these leaves, up, down, round and back towards itself, a curve to connect it, and then we'll draw an arc to create the rest of the leaf. So if we can get it down towards the bottom, that'll work quite nicely. And then one last one here, which I am going to pop in here. It's a bit of a wonky shape, but that's fine. It's the lovely thing about drawing things from nature, they don't have to be exactly the same. So I'm going to draw that central part in. I'm going to split these areas up. Like so. I'm going to add some ink to the bottom and to the sides. And then, well, that's a very droopy one, but that's fine. We can live with droopy. Well, I can. It's not the name of a cartoon dog, Droopy. I've got an image of a dog that looks very morose and black and white. With quite a broad snout, you know, nose on it. So I don't know. Somebody will tell me, I'm sure. So we'll do these leaves again. You can make the ends of them as pointy as you like, or as big as you like, just as they come. That's the trick to all of this, as it comes. You don't want to fret and panic too much about everything, trying to make everything identical, because it's nigh on impossible to do so. Well, it isn't, but that's not the point of drawing with me, and as you draw along with me. It's all for inspiration. So I am just going back and doing what I need to do with these sections just to complete them, and just to give that little bit of weight. Now then, I'm going to pay attention to these leaves because I realise I haven't done that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of what is like ink solder to hold the leaves and the seed pod together. I'm also going to add some line weight to the left and the bottom. So up this side until it starts to bend round. Here is another place, and there. So this is the left and the bottom. This becomes the left too. This little bottom bit perhaps could have a bit more on it. So we're beginning to start to curve over again. So I've done this one already, but this area here just needs that extra bit of weight. Here a little bit, and there a little bit as well. Okay, and on the underneath these, I'm just going to add a little bit of ink on the outside and just a little bit across this, just to again give that feeling that this side is more in shadow. And I didn't do this here, did I? It doesn't look like much, but when you see it not done, it's amazing how different it looks. Now, It's entirely up to you. I'm showing you how I draw things. Sharing what wisdom I can put into words to help or to inspire or to go, oh, I'd never thought of that. I'll give it a go, but I'm not sure it's me, and that's fine. So those are all my seed heads. The one thing I need to do is I'm going to put some seeds in. So I'm going to borrow the Zentangle pattern perk here, and I'm going to fill this section with round seeds that are nestled behind each other. And I started with the biggest one that would be towards the centre of these sections, and so that the other seeds seem to fade away or bend inwards as well. And that helps with that suggestion that this isn't a flat drawing, that this seed pod has dimension to it. Okay, so I'm going to do this like so. Filling in the little areas between the seeds that are white. You'll get those little areas when you draw circles in. Isn't it funny? The smaller the space you have to fit these in, the more you fit in, because they're smaller all entirely. So there's those. Now I am switching to my finest pen, to my 01 here, because I do want to put a central vein in these leaves, and hopefully you'll get to see this. So I'm going to go from the middle at the base around until it touches the top. So from the middle around and allow it to touch the top. We don't want it to go to the corner, we want it to land somewhere towards the top of this curve. It doesn't have to be precise, but we don't want it to curl right into that point there. Okay, and then here we're going to draw this through the centre-ish. These lines I've just drawn don't meet, but they help to suggest that feeling of the lines curving over. And here, what I'm going to do in the top section, I'm going to put the base of this, a line and then another one, and I'm just going to fill in, it's a curve it is, the space underneath, just to bring that out and give some interest. Okay, so there's a chance that if I put these this way I can see what. Just fuss around with my pens a moment. Okay, so now comes the time to add the stems in. So I'm going to start with this one, and they may not follow where I put them originally, but this one is going to end up going, it could go behind, it's going behind this one, so it would actually go behind this one's stem. So I am going to draw this one's stem in first. And I'm actually going to draw it right to the bottom of the page, and I'm going to allow it to get a little bit wider as it goes. So here, this one goes this way and around and back. So there would do an around and back. And then this one is just basically going to go roughly straight, but I'm going to bend it towards the others, like so. So I have my stems here. This one's very wonky, which is fine. We can have wonky stems on things. Right, I am going to do some fussing around with these stems very quickly. So I am going to add some ink to the top and bottom. I'm creating almost like V shapes here. They seem to flare outwards, these ones do. It's essentially because they're joining an edge. So wherever they join an edge, I'm going to do the same thing. As I say, it's often like soldering on stained glass windows or on wrought ironwork, where you have individual pieces held together by this little bit of melted metal in some way, and they become nice and round. So we've got those. And then the next thing, I'm just going to put a V shape here. A couple of dots. I'm going to do the same here. Just adjusting where these start from here, and then I'm going to do some dots going up. This one, I'm just going to do this at the bottom. Oh, I've managed to smudge ink. When don't I smudge ink in a drawing? But it's okay. And that can just go there. So those are the seed pods, but there's one more thing I want to do. And that is, I want to add some leaves to these. Now, I'm going to have trouble adding anything at the top here because it's going to go behind all of these. And I don't want anything that's going to look too fussy or is going to get too complicated. So I'm going to start down here. And I'm going to do the same kind of shape that I started the other one off with and bring it back like that. But from the top, instead of going round like this, I'm going to create something that's like a letter B. But instead of 2 bumps, it's got 3. So like this. And I'm going to do the same on this side, but just a little bit lower down because we don't need them. To be at the same kind of space or same kind of place. On some plants, leaves grow from the stems opposite one another more or less. On others, they are staggered. So as these plants don't really exist in reality, we can really do what we would like to with them. So here I am doing this leaf here. And again, that double letter B. And here I'm going to do one that goes up. This one I will overlap because I've got enough space here to do that, and I don't think it's going to be all that confusing. So it's a judgment call really as to where you put these. And perhaps I can just pop another one on this side. Like so. And I tell you what I'm going to do here is I am going to put a leaf in, but I'm going to do it in a little bit different style. So I'm doing that J shape, and I am going to have this coming back this way. But instead of drawing back over, I'm just going to draw simply underneath. So it looks like we have a leaf there, and that makes me feel happier about this. I could kind of finagle a small one in there, but I'm not going to. Right, I do want to do some line weights and so on with these leaves. So I'm going to start, you can see, I'm starting where the crook of this is, this little nick. I'm starting a little bit over and just adding some weight going up like that, some ink. Just to add some depth. I'm going to do the same on this side where this bends over and under there as well. And just that little bit of rounding that goes there. So I'm going to do this on all of them. So under the bottom there, around here, and from those little sections there and up, a little bit then from the base of the stem. You can already see how this is just giving some substance to these leaves. They don't look kind of thin and flimsy. They look quite sturdy. These kinds of leaves are very much found in medieval manuscripts, the illuminated manuscripts. And that's where my inspiration for them has come from. It's one of the sources of, well, it's art I love. And it's only recently I've worked out that I've been very much inspired by that in my art without realising I've been inspired. So I've loved them as long as I can remember ever seeing them. So not forgetting to go back and round places. I've been quite heavy-handed here with the black there, but I think it'll be okay. And then there's just this one here, so I want to add some black there. Again. Thing is, if you don't draw attention to it, people aren't going to know that it was a mistake. It's meant to be deliberate, and they're all a little bit different, so we can get away with that. And if we want to, we can just go back and make some areas of these others that little bit darker and thicker as well, as if this is how it's all meant to be. So we've got that. I do want to add some weight to the left-hand side of the stem, or what would be the bottom. Essentially, it's going to be all left-hand side, I think. Just to, again, give that idea that there's some thickness but some shadow on one side. I do think I might need to add a bit there. And there's a couple of last things I want to do here before I consider what's next. I want my 01 pen, the finest pen again. And this will take a bit of pen control, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line just inside this here. So I don't want it too far over, but I want it visible at the same time. Like so. And then if we imagine this leaf turning over, this line follows round here, so this line will go on that side like that. Okay, but we don't want it starting in the corner, we still want it to have this line there. Okay, then here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw lines in from these darker areas down to that line, just to separate these leaf out a little bit into little sections like that. Strictly speaking, veins would go in the middle bit there, but as these are drawings, illustrations, imaginary, well, we can take a bit of liberty with them. So here we go again. There. And then this side is where the line would carry on. And again, I'm just going to take a little bit of a liberty here and just split those up. And again, up and over this way. I'm trying to work out what, yeah, it would be this side. Once I start overthinking things, I start to doubt myself, and I think I'm right in what I'm doing. Ultimately, I don't suppose it matters too much, but like so, and then we can add these in. Perhaps with weighting at the top or the beginning and the end of that line. I've got this one to do. There and there. And then I can just bring these back in like so. Then with this one, I'm going to do the same as these, where I'm going to kind of go through the centre and again here. And that will work just nicely for that. Okay, so that is the main part of this drawn. It is. But what I want to do is just start to clean up some of these pencil lines, because I don't want them all in. In fact, I think I may just erase the whole lot. And I'm also going to go with my eraser over my drawing here, because it will pick up any loose pigment from the pens I've been drawing with. And that will mean it's less likely that alcohol markers will erase them. Now, what I want to do is I want to think of an area that I want to draw. I want to colour in behind in marker, just to give myself some background colour. So I'm doing this one, I think it's 2.5 centimetres up. Actually, I might go for 3 centimetres up. 3 centimetres is about 1.25 inches. And I will draw my pencil line across my now, is that too far across? I will draw it in and I will adjust accordingly. So I'm just going to do that there. I definitely want one. I'm doing one a little bit lower down here. No, I definitely need, that's too far across. So let me have a look. This is where I get into I get myself into problems, shall we say. Let me do that one as I did originally on that side and this side, and see how I feel about that now. It's a bit low down, so let's just adjust that a little bit upwards. There could be quite nice, actually. Actually, no, let's just pop it back up as high as it was. So I've got this here and there, and I'm just going to take my pencil to the lines I don't want in here. So I don't want this one. So if I use alcohol marker to put a coloured background behind this, the pencil can become trapped, and I don't want that. I want to be able to erase those lines. Now I've just erased a lot of this one, so I shall just go back. These rulers that have got grids marked on them that you can see through, they're very evenly spaced. If you put this along the edge of the paper, if your paper's, you know, square, not literally square size, but the angles are 90 degrees, the edges are straight, you're able to draw lines fairly accurately enough for me anyway. So I'll just do that. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm just going to get my, you'll hear a nasty Velcro sound, I do apologise, but I am going to look here for a colour I'd like to use for the background. Now, I did put one in here. So I could use a sagey green colour, but cool grey. So hard to decide because I am not good with colour. I've got some rain grey here, so let me try this on the back, on this piece of paper on the back. So I don't put too much down. It's a very, very pale grey. No, I'm not sure, not feeling that one. Let's have a look. What's that one? Powder blue. I think powder blue would be, yeah, it's a weathered grey like. That's a cooler grey. I think I might go with, let me have a look. I've got snowflake blue, which is a very pale blue. It'll dry quite, not sure about that. I do have problems, don't I, with colours? It's well known. I'm not very good with it. I'm looking for one in particular. Do you think I can see it though? Oh, there it is. So I'm going to use this one, which is Pearl, I think. She's quite pale, but perhaps I'll go with a sand dollar. Now, these are Arteza EverBlends, and they might be from the architectural set or or a different set entirely, sort of greys or whatever. So what I'm going to look for is where my pencil lines are. Inside those, I'm going to do my best. This does look a very strong colour, but alcohol markers do dry back a lot lighter than you might think they are when they're damp. So I'm trying to colour these in here and not go inside the lines, the black lines that is. And this is going to end up patchy because the nature of alcohol markers is that you end up with a kind of, when you're filling in big areas, you will end up with a kind of patchiness that perhaps isn't always what you would like, but I'm going to work with that because I intend to draw with either a white gel pen or one of the Moonlight pens. There's probably white on top. Some patterns in here. I could use a slightly darker tone of a fine liner pen of some kind or other. I have many. It's getting ridiculous again. But I think I'd rather like that white because I do like the effect of white on a pale colour, palish colour, because this will, you can see already where it's beginning to dry, how much drier it is going. So, and I am sort of like going over areas, so I'm trying to get the same kind of density of ink so I don't have a paler edge or whatever. I'm not an expert at this, but that's for sure. But out of all the media I use, generally, I like alcohol markers, and I've also grown. In the past week, I've used coloured pencils quite a lot, which has been something I haven't used for a long time. But and oddly, fairly cheap ones as well. Some of the cheaper Faber-Castells. I saw they had a black edition, which turns out black means soft leads, plenty of colour that show up well on dark paper as well as light. And they're really nice to colour with, to be honest. I like my Derwent Colour Soft, but I do find the colours are a bit strange at times. And I do find it hard to find colours that blend and mix well. Whereas with these Faber-Castell ones, they seem to blend quite nicely. Polychromos, I've tried all kinds. I had I've had sets of Polychromos and the Caran d'Ache Luminance, which are beautiful pencils, but they're so hard to work with and cause me a lot of grief with the bit of arthritis I have in my fingers and so on, that it's unpleasant to work with them after a while and frustrating for me. But what I found with coloured pencils is I seem to have a better idea of how to blend different colours. I don't know why it doesn't transfer to other media. Isn't that weird? So here is where I'm going to start doing this in lines, hopefully. And I am going to go down the edge here. I'm going to do that a couple of times just to give me a thicker edge. Oh, already gone past the bottom a bit. So I'm going to have to lower the ones I've already coloured in, which isn't a problem because they will just go over it that little bit. In fact, it's worked better than I thought there. So let's have a look. I have to say that I do prefer a bullet tip to a brush tip for alcohol markers. Okay, I've got to fill this in with this. And then this is where I'm going to end up with a right mess, I can tell. Perhaps it won't dry as badly as I think it's going to. But what I am going to do is, once I get out so far, and once I've got, I think the secret often is to actually waver the edges. And I am going to go back over places and just fill it in. So I'm not a fan of brush tips on alcohol markers. Even though I use brush tip pens for drawing, I can find them really difficult to use when it comes to colouring, because they tend to be very soft, and with only a tiny amount of pressure they suddenly give you such a bigger, broader stroke than you'd had previously. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap to the chisel tip and see if I can use that to fill in the area a bit quicker. And I may get some streakiness, but again, it's just a matter of going over and over and over, saturating the paper so that the ink can blend out itself, or blend in with itself, and so on. And that is the pain with these in some ways. And it's going to look messy, but the messiness will disappear, I'm hoping, or won't be so noticeable when I add pattern over the top. So okay, let's have a look here, because I do need to do something here just to get these edges kind of blending one into another. So I think I'll be all right. I think it might be not too bad. Of course, doing this digitally would be a dream, because digitally is good. But you can see that just adding that block of colour helps to bring these out. Yeah, I could extend it a little bit this way perhaps, but I'm happy with it as it is. And I am going to, while the alcohol ink is wet, see if I can get rid of most of the pencil lines that I've managed to draw over. But they'll just be part of it. It's part of the process of creating things, and sometimes you just have to go, well, it is what it is, and I'll live with that. There, right then. So that was these markers. So let me have a look. I want some colours for these. So I'm going to the architectural set, or the architectural and grey sets, and I'm just going to see what colours come out to me. I do actually want to keep that sage green, and I know that goes with the silt green there. And I do have another sage green here, and I have a faded green, so I might use those for the flowers and stems. It's going to be trickier for me to find the colours I'd like, though, I think, for the top. I think I've got pearl. I know I've got sand dollar, but I don't want to use the sand dollar. Think about the colours of the seed pods. I may have to dig out another set of alcohol markers. That's my problem, not anybody else's, though. I did have, where did I put that? I had a scrap. Well, it's now becoming a scrap piece of paper, but let's have a look at these and see what colours I've got. This is the faded green. This is sage green, which is quite a bit darker than that. But will they blend together? Because if they blend, well, they could be the... Actually, they actually do blend quite well together. And I've got this one, which is that's the sage green, and this one is the silt green. Actually, there's two of them. And they will blend one into another quite nicely. Okay, it looks like I'm going to use these yellowy greens for these, and I think I'm going to use these colours because I think they'll go quite nicely with the sand dollar, the seed heads. Now, I'm not going to colour all of these in because we're coming up to 45 minutes here, and I just want to give you an idea of how I'm going to do this. So for the leaves, I'm going to colour them all in this faded green, because I know I can come back and add, well, I can come back, I will come back and add highlights with a white gel pen. But what I'm doing is I'm adding this darker green where I want the shadows or darker areas to be. So that's going to be at the base of the leaf, up this edge a little bit, towards the top where it's starting to curl over, and underneath where we've got that, where there'd be a shadow there. And the reason I'm colouring all of this in first with the light colour is to get some alcohol ink into the paper. It's kind of to wet the paper with the alcohol ink so that the darker colour, because it is quite a bit darker, will blend easier with the lighter colour, and we'll get less noticeable harsh lines, which is exactly what's happening. And this works on, I mean, I'm using paper that's designed for alcohol markers. You can put plenty of ink on this. It holds the ink well. The ink doesn't. I might put a little bit in the, just on the tips, as if they're that little bit further away as well. Certainly on this one, because it does look like it's curling over and round. I think I could do just a little bit more dark there. So that looks, they're looking quite good. And this is just with two colours. You know, I like a darker colour to perhaps increase the contrast, but I think there's enough contrast here for it to work for me, to be honest. Now, with these colours, I do want to blend them out, but I don't want to have them blending too far. I want to try to leave a lighter area in between them. Oh, right, let's see if there's a difference if I do it this way. It's probably not, because I'll still need to go over them to get them to spread, but depends which pen I've got in my hands, which I'm going to use, I think. And you could do more than one leaf at a time, but I find the alcohol inks do tend to dry quite quickly. And because I'm not always paying attention to where I'm putting the ink down first, or which pen I've got in my hand, I'm always going to start adding the ink to where I want shadows, just in case I've picked up the wrong marker. And I'm only using these two to begin with. So it's not like I'm going to pick up a completely different colour. Now I've just managed to add some colour just outside that line there. But what I'll do is, once in a little while, I'll come back and I'll add some colourless blender to that, or if that's not an option, I can use a white gel pen. But the principles for adding colour, shade, highlight and so on are the same no matter what media you're using. I just prefer to use markers. What I'm doing with this one, because I've got a bigger area, I can actually flick this to feather the ends that little bit. And when I come to blend this out, that means that I'll have different different intensity of that colour as well, or the patterns that'll be there. So I don't know if you saw what I did there. Let me just fill one of these in again. So I'm adding the shade at the base of these little leaflets, and I'm just flicking up. I was trying to leave this section here, that thin inner part, the lightest colour, but it's not going to happen. So I've added shadow, the base of these little leaflets. I'm just going to go back over them and blend them. Same here, and then here. And then that just gives those natural highlights where they are. So I'll do one more so you can see what I've done as well. Oh, see, I'm not doing my own ideas, my own advice here. So I'll just do that. Should have checked what colour I had in my hand actually. Because for these I do want to get the paper damp with the lighter colour, because it's a big area, and I want to be able to blend these out. So I'm just flicking this down. From here I'm flicking it up from the base as well. I just want a little bit there as well for that section. And then I can just go and blend the edges out and soften that edge and blend, like so. What time is it? 52. It doesn't take that long to do, does it? Well, I say that. I've got in my head that I should be doing shorter videos, but part of me thinks that I'd either end up doing the videos in sections, which can be a bit of a pain, but I also know that you can always come back to the videos at a later time, or do part of it, complete part of it, come back as you wish, and gives options. There. So there's that one, and the last leaf. Then I'll do the stems. This is going to be interesting because we've got an overlap here. So, okay, so I've got the darkest area will be under there, but I'll also have plenty of darkness where these leaves overlap. Perhaps a little bit more than I would have put in ordinarily. So I've got some here, so I'm just going to blend that out, these here, and that one there. And that's my leaves so far. So if I bring that back, you can see what's going on here. Okay, for the stems, I am going to put the darkest colour in first. So I'm turning my page to the side just to make it easier for me to draw. The bottom part of the stems is going to be the left-hand side. So I'm going to put shadow underneath here because these are on top and sticking out, so there'll be shadow here. Down this side here, there's going to be shadow in there. Again, there's going to be shadow here that comes from this overlap, and then I'm just going to take that down to the bottom, and I am going to have it going further out. So, and then I can come back with my lighter colour. I'll put a little bit of light on the edge there because it will lighten that up that little bit. But this will also, it will preserve, because I'm a little while coming back to add the lighter colour. It will preserve some of that line, you know, sort of like the line of this darker colour. But what I can do as well is I do want to go back in and intensify that, because I really, really want quite strong shadows here, like so. So that's working. So I'll do the same on the others very quickly. The others are going to be easier because there's no overlapping or underlapping. There's only that one. Part of my head wanted to create really, really crazy kinds of stems here. But in reality, it just didn't look right or feel right. So you have to go with the feelings. So let me just go down here. I'm going to add some more of the dark colour right along the edge and underneath here, just to get that intensity that's there. So that's beginning to work quite nicely. I've also just had a thought that I could add lighter colours and intensity with coloured pencils. I don't have to colour it all in. I can just use them in places that feel right. And the other thing I want to do is I am going to add shadow and highlight to these. So I'm putting the darkest colour on either side and I'm leaving a space in between where there's going to be the lightest colour. And this is just for the stem. So once I finish this, actually I think I might do the seeds in this green, because I think that would make some kind of sense. They would stand out from the other colour that way. But I think I might like to add this, you know, do the seed pods in a different colour. I don't know if you noticed, but I am colouring over all of the dark colour with that light green. The colours mix and they create a more coherent appearance. So if you only colour, this is my opinion, if you only colour over a little bit of that dark colour, you don't get that full gradient in some way. But at the same time, I'm also going back to add some more of the darker colour where I've got the shadows, just to bring those out. And with those, I am just going to blend out just the edge of them. This also glazes the lighter colour a little bit and helps with a subtler gradient between the lightest part and the darkest part. I think I also want to do this, actually I do want to do this with these sections as well, because I think this will make a bit more sense than having them that different colour that I'm going to use on these other parts. So let me just do these quickly. I think it's almost like we've got something holding the CD pod area all together. So I just think that will work nicely. And I'll do this one. You can see with these now, I'm beginning to get my confidence with what I'm doing. And I'm thinking, okay, we need this all one colour. So, you know, we've got to underlie it all with this colour. And I can blend that dark out. Then I can come back with the dark colour again just to put that in, and it will naturally blend its way through. These little bits here, I am going to colour them just in the pale green. I may just add a tiny hint of the darker colour towards the bottom of them, but I don't want too much. I'm going to come back there with either a white pencil or white gel pen, as soon as I've now got the idea of white pencil, you know, using, what do you call them? Coloured pencils. Okay, for this I'm just going to do really simple shading. I'm going to draw the darker line down either side of these and leave a highlight in the middle as I just go outside the lines completely on this one. It's fine because the colours I add will neutralise these, okay. Right then, I've got sage green and I've got silt green. I think the silt green is the lighter one. Nope, I think it's the sage green. Yeah, it's hard to tell. That is slightly darker than this one. Same principles. I'm going to put the lightest colour, use the lightest colour just to fill the whole section in. So that's my base colour. I'll come back to that slit in the middle in a moment. Then I'm going to add shadow to the bottom and I'm going to flick. Again, I'm flicking that up so I get a feathered edge rather than a solid edge. And then I'm going to use this lighter colour just to help to blend these two together, because they are a bit on the different side in terms, you know, quite. There's quite a difference between the saturation of the colours. So. I'm just going to go back around the outside edge there, perhaps the bottom on the other side while I've got the darker colour in my hand. Again, it's just bringing that saturation back. And as I've said already, don't want to bore you, but the principles are the same with whatever kind of media you wish to colour or shade with. So here I do want to add some intensity of colour towards the top and bottom of these, especially as I've got things that are where they're overlapping like that. So that works nicely. Okay. I'm having doubts about the background colour here, to be honest with you. I'm beginning to think perhaps this sand dollar wasn't the best idea, but hey ho, we go with it. I'm sure we're going to find combinations of colours like this in nature. What I've noticed I'm doing here, and I don't know if you've picked up on it, is that I am flicking the darker colour increasingly long, in increasingly long strokes as I move towards the outside edge. So it's almost like we've got more shadow on this side, so much so they'll actually meet, but here and towards the middle we're going to have smaller areas perhaps of shadow as they catch perhaps a little bit more light. Here there's just that little bit more needed there. And I will just blend those edges again. They do need that blending, otherwise they end up looking very patchy, and I don't mind some texture, but there's a I think we need to be mindful of being too textured as well. So I've got a lot of that down, so let's start to get some of this colour in. And again, I'm saturating it with the dark right at the edge, and then with this lighter colour is what I'm using to blend out. I keep coming back to alcohol markers as a mode of adding colour. And it's an interesting one for me in some ways. I think I like the flat colour, but it's also finding the right kind of, or right colours that work for me, because I really do prefer these softer, more muted colours. A lot of alcohol markers are really brightening your face. And I don't want those bright in your face colours generally. I prefer these more muted ones. I think this has been happening for a while, where I'm tending towards these, even when it comes to digital art, though it depends what I'm doing there. You know, if it's one of my, a lot of my digital art for colouring pages is very bright and in your face, because they're cute and they're whimsical. I'm not saying this isn't cute and whimsical, because it is whimsical its way. But I think this one's a bit more towards the realistic rather than the whimsy. But more stylised perhaps than anything else. But I can also see how these simplified palettes and this simple aspect of adding colour and shade is coming from the arts and crafts movement as well, because it really does. I really love what they do. Obviously, I talk about it a lot at the moment because the pennies have dropped. Finally, my pennies have dropped, and hair in my eye, and I just absolutely love it. Okay, so I've got my samples here, and I'm looking for. I've definitely got white. Well, I should have white. There we go. So I know that if I use my white pencil, I should be able to add some highlights, which it will do. They're going to be very subtle because coloured pencils aren't exactly the most see-through. They do add a bit of a sheen and a shine as well, so that is something I need to be mindful of. But I'm looking for a darkish colour that may tone in with that. I'm not too sure. I'll keep that one out. Ooh. Now that's darker. That's the one. Okay, so I've got a darker one for this. I want darker for this one now. So it is looking for a darkish, dull green. Don't think it'll be that one though. It would work. That would work. It's a blue-grey, or dark, yeah, blue-grey. Don't think this one. Will this one? That one would actually. There we go. Job's a good one. We found the colours we want. The only thing I now need is a pencil sharpener. So let's have a look. So I've got a darkish green. I've got that darker blue-grey, and I've got this one as well. Okay, so this one is the one I wanted to use here for. I think that was the one, or was it this one? Might be this one actually. That's a bit better. So I can use that to actually increase the contrast quite nicely. There's no doubt I've got a darker version of this alcohol marker colour, but I've got a sneaky suspicion it may be a bit too dark. So with coloured pencils, you can, by varying the pressure you use, you can put more or less of the pencil down. So if you compare this one I've just done with the others, I'm just looking at my screen, there is a subtle difference there. So I could have just used a base colour and come back with coloured pencils, because that's always an option as well. Nothing says that you can't do this. In fact, different artists find different ways of working. And mixed media is a big thing. And this is a kind of mixed media. I'm mixing the media I'm using up to get the effects I want. So that's a lot darker, but the problem here is that I have not blended this out at the edge properly. So what I've got here is I've got a blending pencil. And it's a colourless blender. And I can use it just to blend the edges out of the whole shebang. I think I'll just use it just to colour the edges out, or blend the edges out of the coloured pencil where I've added it, so we don't get those harsh edges again. This one's from Prismacolour. It's called a colourless blender. They're not too easy to come by here, it seems. I could be wrong. Managed to get a couple more for my stash. But they are useful if you use coloured pencils. I mean, you can use things like Gamsol or Zest-It or odourless thinners, but they all give off chemicals that aren't very good for you, and they all set off my asthma. So I have to use things like this that don't affect my breathing, because that's not good. And these work really nicely. They also don't need a lot of pressure, I find. But different people say different things. I just want a very subtle kind of blending. You can, if you don't add too much or don't press too hard with them, you can add more colour on top. But I'm just getting to the point where I just want that edge just blended out softly and gently, so I don't have that harsh line there. I think I needed to do this one as well. So that's brought those out that little bit more. In fact, it has quite a bit, isn't it? I'm surprised. I'm impressed. Okay, with these, hopefully I'm going to get darker shadows where I want them with this green colour. Actually, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. I may have to find a different green, but I don't think it's made any difference at all. So we'll put that to one side. I'm not going to use the white pencil. I've decided against that. So I'm just going to go and get my, that's it. I've got my GellyRoll, my 08 GellyRoll here. And I'm just going to get it started and clean it off on my paper, background paper. This is going to end up very messy. There we go. But what I'm going to do is in these sections where I've got the highlights, I'm drawing along them but in a broken line. And I want more highlights towards the front than I do towards the edges, perhaps. And I just think that with a broken line, it just breaks it up and creates that interest. It looks more like there's a texture on this seed pod that's catching the light in places. And I've sort of like increased that suggestion by allowing some of the dots to go to the top and bottom. So hopefully you can see this. Yep, there we go. So I'll do that quickly on the others. So I am just dragging this line across, breaking it up as I say dragging the line, drawing a line, breaking it up as I go, same here, and then I'm just going to pop dots at the top of my seeds in the seed pod. I'm just going to add a couple of dots in to the bottom and top of each section of these lines just to Suggest there's some light there. Doing the same here. Here. And just perhaps a couple of dots, just spread out so it doesn't look too artificial, I guess. Like so. Let's clean that off again. That's the problem with these. The gel ink does dry around the ball and they do need cleaning off from time to time. And I'm using quite a light hand with them as well, like so. So there's some real highlight going on there. Okay, with the bits at the top, I'm going to actually put quite a large white, well, I say dot, it's not a dot, it's kind of an oval or a rounded oval shape there. And then with these sections here, I'm waiting for them to dry. I'll be waiting forever, I think. I'm just going to pop some, again, these highlights that are sort of broken dots, broken lines rather, in these places. Like so. So we've got that going on. Then these leaves. We can see where the highlights are, so I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to put some broken lines where the highlights are. Maybe not on the tips as I just did, but where... So I'm starting with some dots and putting some lines in and finishing with dots. So wherever you've got space, if you can fit them in. That'll work. That'll work. And here's the last one here. Like so, and just perhaps a couple there. Okay, so we've got that going on. I'll just zoom out because I'm moving all over the place. These is the same idea, so I'm going to put some highlights in these. And the trick to these is you want to stagger the tops and bottoms so they don't all start and end at the same level. I think that's the trick. Like so. Perhaps some there, and we'd have some in this section. Here, the highlights are all down here. That one. And there. And this one. Like so. Stems, I'm going to draw in a dotted or broken line down the length of the right hand side. I'm not going to do it in here because, well, I just put a couple of dots because that would mostly, that part of the stem would mostly be in shadow. But there we go. Then there's this to deal with. Now my pattern of choice, she goes, my pattern of choice would be R, I think, is it R? Which is like patterns like this where we've got like little bursts going on, which I really do enjoy. But I also have a bit of a fondness for Tripoli, and I do want to have a look and see how light. Gee, it'd be quite subdued on here, and I think we'll do some Tripoli. And the way I do Tripoli is I draw rows of triangles like this. And then for the next row, I start by drawing ones on top like that, and then I fill the gaps in between, because I just find this works out for me just fine and dandy. And of course we want to remember that they're going to go behind this, and that's where the fun begins, over there. So I'll do the same. If they get a bit wonky, if the lines go wonky and wobbly, I'm not going to complain about that, because again it adds interest, and imperfection is being human. But I think you get the idea of what's going on here. Now this one I'm not going to complete on camera. I will finish it while the video's uploading and processing and whatever's happening with it. And then later on today I will post you a picture of it finished. Does that sound okay? So it's beginning to get interesting here. Now there's one thing that I need to do before I complete this, before I finish this, and I'm going to do it over here, where I think here will be fine. So I'm going to draw a bubble, and I'm just going to put my initials in there because I'm claiming it as mine. But I hope you have a go at drawing your own version, and that you really enjoy doing it as well, because I really have enjoyed doing this with you. And it's a bit longer video than, I say a bit longer than usual. This is where my videos are mostly going these days. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for taking the time to stick with me. If you've subscribed, thank you. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video, which won't be Sunday the 6th, which is tomorrow as I'm recording this. I don't do videos on Sundays. Sundays are strange days, but I'll be back on Monday. Though I may post in the community section, because I do art every day regardless, unless I'm unwell. So look after yourselves, take care, and above all else, find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now. Bye. Hoyle.